Hello traders, this is Rich from tradesight. This is a look at our market leading stocks via our proprietary scans for Monday, April 21st, 2014. Today's expiration Thursday. I love saying that because you don't get to say that too often. So we have to take that into consideration. We're going to see some big prints on the close, and we're also in earnings season, so we're going to see some volume bumps that are associated with the earnings releases. Today we're getting a downside RPS in Apple. Trying to walk that up to the 530 strike, it looks like, but they're going to come up short of that. So could be interesting for Monday. That one's on fairly decent volume. Got a volume bump in Google on earnings. That one's pretty weak today. Volume bump on SanDisk. That one's really strong. 1% above the day's open and hanging on pretty well with an upside CPS. Netflix has an RPS condition to the downside. It's going to have a volume bump by the final prints, and it's 2.5% below the day's open. Also seeing really good positive price action in Sina. That one's about 6.5% above the day's open. It's going to be on about 3 times the typical volume. Moving on to the financials. The financials are a little bit skewed to the downside here on balance. We don't have any CPS conditions, but we do have a fair amount of RPSs, and the ones that come on volume are important. Sallie Mae, Morgan Stanley, MetLife all have downside RPSs, and we've got some pretty strong action in Sallie Mae, but it's pulled significantly off the day's high on 2 times the typical volume. USB's got good volume, and that one has an upside RPS. American Express, good volume. That one's 1% below the day's open. Huntington Bancorp, trading more than 2 times the typical volume, and that one has a contra candle to the upside. Energy names. Energy prices are pretty firm this morning, as they've been last trading day of the week, with geopoliticals in motion. PBR does have a very strong candle, 4.5% above the day's open, but that one's setting up with a downside RPS. So does CHK and Arch Coal. Schlumberger also in motion with some pretty good volume, and a close that's going to be about 1.5% below the day's open. Taking a look at the generals, they're a little bit better to buy, but not a lot. Again, most of the volume bumps here are going to be earnings related. UNH putting up a contra buy candle. IBM is also putting up a contra buy candle. That one's got good volume. That one was on the earnings. GE also trading really good volume, posting a downside RPS. As far as the housing names go, kind of a mixed bag. Couple of buys, couple of sells. NVR is trading some pretty good volume, but that's about 2% below the day's open. I've got a downside RPS at Home Depot, but that one's on a little bit lighter than typical volume. Transports were really strong yesterday, and some of them were following through today. UNP following through to the upside. That one's almost 4% above the day's open on good volume. You can see that most of the transports are trading pretty well today. And finally, the commodities. Very light volume. We do have some downside CPSs. Barrick Gold, Silver, Wheaton, and Newmont, all precious mining names indicated with CPSs to the downside. The ABX is actually pretty weak. That's about a full 2% below the day's open, so that's going to be a pretty darn bearish candle on the chart. All right, folks, have a great long holiday weekend, and we look forward to seeing and speaking with you again next week. This has been Rich for tradesight.